So today I'm going to answer one of the most frequent questions I get is how in the world do I get my FFL? If you follow along, I'm going to make this super easy and super affordable for you to apply for your FFL and get it successfully. Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Gun Psychiatrist here. So this seems to be a pretty hot topic of conversation with most folks. How do I get my FFL, which is a federal firearms license? I'm going to give you the best way to proceed from someone that's actually done it before of how to get your FFL and get it successfully and have really the least amount of problems possible, because there's a lot of different agencies that are involved with the FFL process, and it's kind of helpful having the inside knowledge of who you really need to deal with. A lot of people think that the ATF approves the FFL, and that's actually false. It's not the ATF. It's actually your local zoning board. Your local zoning board has pretty much authoritative control over all of businesses and pretty much human activity in general. They say what can be done where, why it can be done there, and who can do it there. If you happen to live in one of those blue cities or states and you're trying to start a gun store in your local area, it's going to be really, really difficult for you if you don't meet all of their current conditions that they may set, or whichever ones they want to make up to just give you a hard time. If you live in one of the maybe more conservative areas, it can still be pretty tough depending on the restrictions that the locality has in place. So the best piece of advice I can give you is you need to set up a meeting with your local zoning inspector or one of the zoning inspectors and go talk to them. Declare your intentions. When you're dealing with any government agency, it's probably best to not be all chitty chatty. I'm just going to divulge everything and spill all the beans about what you're trying to do. You need to be quite cryptic about everything. For example, if you're trying to start a hydrographic shop, you don't need to go into the details of telling them there's going to be paint or there's going to be this or there's going to be that. Just say, I'm just refinishing firearms, and leave it at that. And if they ask another question, give them a very uninformed, generic answer. That's all they're looking for. Don't give them too much, because when you give them too much, it can cause you a lot of problems down the road. Work with your local zoning board, though. Another piece of advice that might help you out, especially if you live in a small town, reach out to your sheriff. Your sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer within the county and holds all the law enforcement power over all officers. Coincidentally, the sheriff also works with city council, county commissioners. A lot of agencies go through him and he goes through them. So he knows a lot of people. And if you have a good, solid sheriff in your county, set up a meeting with him. It's good to meet your sheriff anyways. But go down there, meet with him, and tell him what you're planning on doing. And obviously you can be a little bit more forward with him, because 9 times out of 10, he's probably a gun guy. And 9 times out of 10, that could be a new customer for you, especially the sheriff. And if he likes you and he likes your character, he's going to be willing to help you out. That might even come in the form of him writing a letter. So it's always good to have a couple bureaucrats in your back pocket that are your friends that can help you get through what could be a very challenging government process. Once you have gotten a list of requirements from your zoning board and you've talked to your sheriff and kind of declared your intentions, and I only say talk to your sheriff because especially if you're planning to do this on your own property in like out of your house or in a detached garage or shop, it's really helpful to have your sheriff on your side there. Even though he doesn't have any power to approve or deny it, he does have some strings that he can pull in your favor. Once you get everything hashed out in your location and all this stuff and you talk to everybody, your local zoning board is going to help point you in the right direction as to what you can and can't do. Take down notes with what they have, because you're going to need to fit their modus operandi of how they want businesses doing business in their jurisdiction. The next thing you need to do is form a business. Now, there's all these things that you'll see on the internet like LegalZoom and we'll form your business for you. Those are really giant ripoffs designed to extract money out of you that you don't really have right now because you're trying to start a business and you need all that extra money you can get. So one of the easiest things you can do is, with a little bit of research and following what I'm about to tell you, you'll be able to do everything those fancy legal services are going to do for you. They just know where to find everything. The first thing you need to do is file for all your state licenses. State licenses include your name registration. In some states, it's called a fictitious name registration, or articles of organization or incorporation. So this is where you're going to file for an LLC or an incorporation of a C or S Corp. Once you do this, they're going to issue those articles of organization or incorporation with your name, including a certificate of good standing. We'll get into why you need that in a minute. For example, in the state of Florida, it's SunBiz. Like states like Colorado, it was the Secretary of State that handles all the corporations. Easiest way to find it is Google XYZ state business search, and that'll come up with your state's business search. And within there, you can navigate through a few windows and you will find the place where you can file for a new LLC or corporation. I'm not trying to tell you what to file for, but if you're trying to start your own first business, an LLC is going to be the best bet for you because, number one, it offers a certain amount of liability protection to protect your assets from lawsuits or what have you from disgruntled customers or whatever. And number two, it puts you in right about the perfect tax bracket because you don't really want to pierce the corporate veil just yet. The next step is to go to the federal government. All you need to do with federal is go to the IRS website or Google file for my EIN or get an EIN number. EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. You're going to need this for the next step. It's completely free. If there's a service out there trying to sell you that they'll file your EIN, they're screwing you over because to file for an EIN is completely 110% free through the IRS website. The next thing you need to do is banking. You need to form a bank account. And this is where the certificate of good standing comes in because you're going to need to take your articles of organization or incorporation, your certificate of good standing, and your EIN into the bank with you to file for a bank account. This is going to get that first $100 or whatever money you're putting in into a bank account so you can have a business bank account with your company name on it that is used just for the business. I don't recommend mixing your personal finances with business. Now it's time to go into the local business licenses. This is where it gets a little cloudy. Now, if you listen to me before you started any of this process, you've already been in contact with your zoning board. They already know your intentions. You already know the requirements, and you might have a sheriff as a friend on your side to help you get your local licenses and get your place of business approved for the FFL. You're going to need a city business license if you're within city limits. Some states, like in Florida, for example, require not only a city, but a county business license as well. So whatever licenses you'll need, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, you're going to have to get and apply for those licenses. They can be occupancy permits or business licenses or what have you, but you're going to need those either way. Sometimes they include a fire inspection. Sometimes they don't. You might have to go through your local fire department to get your fire inspector to come out and inspect your business. Some counties use the fire inspector as the zoning inspector. This is where it gets very confusing because there is no single city or county that operates the same way. It all depends on budgets and a bunch of other government bureaucratic red tape, how they operate. So I can't tell you how your locality is going to respond to a new request for you to open a business. Either way, it's important that you get through zoning. And while you're doing this, if you're not in your own home, I would recommend doing this right when you move into like a new shop. I would have most of your wiring done. I would have most of the stuff in its place, but just enough to get you by. It's best to just have the bare minimum in there. You're going to be a gunsmith. The FFL is needed to take in serialized firearms, work on them, and send them out the door. That's what they need to see. It's much easier for them to come in and ask questions after the fact. You could simply say, hey, I expanded my business into this area. It's a lot more easier to work with them then versus putting all your eggs in the basket of startup and them just shut you down all of a sudden because they didn't like something they see in your business. Either way, I would show them the minimal amount of things that you're going to be doing as possible. Keep everything clean, keep it pretty, keep it basic, keep your answers to a minimum, and do not be descriptive because it can actually hurt you when you're talking to the government. Once you get your fire inspection, zoning may or may not come out. Now, if you've already talked to you about it, or you might have had to file a special exemption just to get a business on your property, then you're going to have to go to a zoning hearing in which they're going to make a public notice and they're going to set a date for a hearing probably 30 days out, and they're going to tell the public what your intentions are to put a business on your land. And if you have any anti-gun neighbors, they're probably going to come out and protest you at that meeting. But the zoning board would meet at that meeting and they will ask questions. In the case of Georgia, a lot of times they will take a local non-governmental development agency, which kind of falls under the guidelines of UN Agenda 21 and 2030, and they will tell you whether or not your business is sustainable for that area. So it kind of gets a little crazy. But luckily, when I did that in the state of Georgia, they found me okay. There was a few things that came up, but I was able to answer those with very, very limited descriptions, and the county zoning board was happy about it, and they looked to have a new taxing entity in their area that can bring in tax revenue. Another thing I'm going to bring up is taxes. If you're performing services, you have to charge sales tax depending on where you live, because there's materials that you pay for that normally get charged tax. So you need to get your sales tax license. That's another thing to apply for. Once all your businesses and everything have gone through, apply for your state's resale tax license, and that's also done at the state level. Or it's done at your local level. Just talk to the local government and find out. But you want to have that sales tax license in place so you can properly tax your customer. Once all that's done, this is not required, but if you are a veteran, if you're a disabled veteran, or you're a minority, or minority-owned business, or disabled minority, what have you, any of those statuses that you may want to have applied to your business down the road for government contracts, now would be an excellent time to file for your DUNS number. That's D-U-N-S, which comes from Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet will issue a number. They're basically a credit rating agency. They measure a business's potential to succeed or fail. It won't look good in the beginning, but you don't pay attention to that. The government just needs that DUNS number to set you up as some type of X business. They will need a DUNS number to set you up under that, under their system. So now's a good time to apply for that DUNS number once you already have everything in place. It doesn't take long. It just takes forever to get it approved, like 30 to 60 days. And if you want it approved overnight, they're going to charge you like $800. It's ridiculous what they want. Now, once all these steps are completed, now is the time that you would actually file the ATF paperwork with the ATF. So file for your FFL, fill it out, have the sheriff's office go back, do a little business with the sheriff's office, give them 10, 15 bucks to get your fingerprints done. Go get your passport photos done at Walgreens or what have you, and then send the application, of course, tracked by priority mail with your check to the ATS FFL Processing Center. All the instructions are on the form. Now you have a 2-month wait, and then your field agent's going to come in for an interview. My experience with an FFL interview is it's very laid back and nonchalant. My field agent was a pretty cool field agent. He was a gun guy. He wasn't one of these anti-gun grabbers that they have in Washington, and he openly tells you that, but he also has to follow the law, so don't think you're going to get any leeway. But he's going to go over all of the laws and regulations. He's going to have a look around your business and probably ask you what you do. But for the most part, he's concerned and he's doing the interview to teach you about FFL regulations, how to run a background check, how to run multi-guns. And you're going to sit in there probably for an hour or two with him, and there's going to be a checklist that he goes off with you. He's also going to tell you the state agency you need to contract with or file for a license with to run background checks on 4473s. He's going to give you all that information in the interview, or at least point you in the right direction. And a good agent's always going to tell you, if you ever have any questions, call me. Here's my personal cell. Don't be afraid to ask a stupid question. That's the FFL process. Now, in the meantime of this about 2-month wait period, there's things you can do and you can't do. What you can't do is take in any serialized firearm and work on it. So if someone brings you an AR-15, you can't take it in. Now, you can work on your own serialized guns. If someone brings you an AR-15 upper with no serialized part on it, you can do whatever you want to do to it. That's not considered a regulated item. The FFL allows you to work on serialized weapons, full complete guns. They don't just send slides in the mail. Well, some people do. But when someone buys a gun, they're not buying just a slide. They're buying a slide and a frame, and there is a serialized part in there. That's why you need the FFL. So anything that is not serialized, you're going to be allowed to work on and tinker with. Anything that is serialized, you're going to have to wait. Even after your interview, you might wait about 2 weeks before you get that hard copy FFL in the mail. Once you get that, you are good to go. Also in this time, it's best once you get your interview to go on Amazon or whatever website you fancy and get A&D books. Keep hard copies. If you want to go electronic, whatever. You're susceptible to electronic attack, and if your computers go down and you got to do a trace, you're screwed. So I always keep hard copy books. Write it down. You can't go wrong. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. Love to hear your comments below. If you've had different experiences, it'd be great to hear your story. Overall, it's a pretty easy process. You're probably looking to get set back about $500 depending on what FFLs you get, but you're going to have state licenses, you're going to have local licenses, and the whole process is probably going to cost you on average around $500 to do. So I hope this was informative. Look forward to you guys' feedback. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm the Gun Psychiatrist signing off, and God bless America again.